Hello there.
The cinema courtroom is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome back to the cinema courtroom if you're tuning in again. But if you are tuning in to this feed for the first time ever, I am your host and galactic judge, Makram, presiding over another groundbreaking and suspenseful episode. And because it is Friday, we are going to be not reviewing a movie, but we're going to be doing a roundup of topics for the cinema industry. Now, usually, just for a bit of housekeeping, on Tuesday, we go in depth about a particular motion picture. But on Friday, we round up the latest news of our industry, as well as, general subject matters that impact the industry and the movies that we see on the big screen. Movies in which, again, some of them we review on Tuesday. But on Friday, we talk about the whole industry surrounding that. And listen, whether you're listening on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel, where you're also going to gain access to exclusive video coverage, such as last-minute verdicts. We thank you for tuning in and ask that you don't forget to subscribe and like this podcast episode on your way out. Don't forget to rate the Cinema Courtroom Show out of 5 on your favorite platforms as well, because believe me, it really helps boost the algorithm machine more than you know. Now, I'm going to give you a list of things that we have to cover before this episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show ends. The WGA strikes, my theories on who is and isn't going to be casted for Superman Legacy, the Mandalorian crossover picture, and whether or not, it should even be made. My honest opinions of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed by James Gunn, and spoiler alert for that review, I actually love the Guardians 3 because it almost, because of James Gunn, restored my faith in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As to why I think that is, you will find out. We'll also be conversing about independent versus mainstream filmmaking, why indie films are the way to go, and whether or not interconnected franchises like the DCEU or Marvel have lost their way, the most iconic film directors of our time, and to finish it all off, recognizing soundtracks as a genre of music on its own. Now that's going to be a very controversial one. Without further ado, let us not waste any more time and get started on the Writers Guild going on strike. The Writers Guild of America plays a very vital role in preserving the rights and interests of employed screenwriters in the United States. Now, how effective they are in preserving those elements, that's debatable, for sure. There has been a heavy dispute with the WGA and executives because both interests of these two parties don't align, right? So, interests such as the economical difference of streaming and the cable market are conflicting, because when the first writer's strike took place in the year 1960, the very result of that strike was that every time a motion picture aired on television, the writers got to consume a very substantial, fat, and epic slice of the revenue pie. The revenue that the writers got to share with the team involved in creating whatever movie or, of course, television show was so much more than what they're getting today, apparently. That now, this revenue is no longer sustainable for the writers to pay rent because of, streaming networks like HBO, Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime, etc., etc. And because these platforms don't run ads, because they're premium, the writers have access to very little to no ad revenue. Not to mention the conflict of interest when it comes to mini rooms. And in case you don't know what a mini room is, it's essentially a glorified, it's self-explanatory because it's called mini room, but it's basically a glorified mini version of the writer's room, where basically a season of a television series hasn't been greenlit, which, because traditionally they'd create the pilot episode and then they'd be like, okay, I approve of this episode, we're going to greenlight the rest of the season. But in a mini room, the whole season has been planned out already, which basically means writers who operate in mini rooms get paid less because they are, quote unquote, not officially writing. So obviously that poses a significant problem, and it compels you to contemplate, no wonder why they voted for a strike. We also have the controversial issue of artificial intelligence. For a matter of fact, I would recommend, and I'm not sorry for the shameless plug that I'm about to give you, but you're listening to this podcast for free without ads, so I may as well plug it. Head over to the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel, where I actually talk about ChatGPT, and its impact on the film industry in the icy cold snow, no less. So you know what? I think I've earned that shameless plug. Thank you very much. According to Deadline, this writer's strike is costing California's economy no less than $30 million a day. Let me say it again. The writer's strike is costing California's economy $30 million. Now, this is problematic for one big and, hopefully obvious reason. There are many local businesses in that state that must rely on the convenience of production crews and talent for their livelihood. The consequences of a writer's strike consists of having delayed productions because there are no finished scripts to film, and when the writing isn't completed, it becomes chaotic because, again, no production, and no production leads to places like restaurants, service providers, and hotels having to maybe shut down. The local economy is screwed. Why? Because the executives and writers cannot come up with a fair deal. I mean, that's crazy, and it's also why, by the way, I'm going to get a lot of opposition in the comment section for this, but I am not keen on the prospect of union-sanctioned strikes in general. Because, and there's no way to sugarcoat this, it shut down industries. A WGA strike single-handedly wiped out half of the film industry, if you think about it, because writing, and considering that in Hollywood you have to be registered in the WGA in order to be employed, it affects anything but international films and shows, and especially the cinema industry. Economic ripples, loss of revenue and jobs, a lack of shareholder confidence. Riddle me this. Do you honestly believe that shareholders have a philosophy other than efficient show business? Shareholders don't give two shits, ladies and gentlemen, if a writer throws a tantrum because of a WGA deal gone wrong. What shareholders do give a shit about is their return on investment, as every shareholder should. I would be very concerned, actually, if a shareholder stood with the WGA union, because we must comprehend the economy of uncertainty for investor confidence and shareholders is ever so strong. The unpredictability surrounding the duration and outcome of the writer's strike hampers investor confidence and might result in a sort of reluctance to invest in future projects because, this project isn't being written, pre-production is getting delayed, and we're not going to get an output. Why should we invest any money? This, in turn, will have a lasting impact on the financial well-being of our industry. Again, especially because we talk about cinema here in the Cinema Courtroom show, especially the cinema industry. Now, I get that the WGA strikes are going to affect seasons of television a tad more, but depending on how long the WGA is going to be on strike, we're going to feel that effect with cinema. Think about what a writer's strike would also impact in terms of the reputation economy for states like California. 30 million a day. I have to reiterate that $30 million, could have been used for production. And now, production corporations and studios must seek alternative locations that have more stable labor conditions, which will impact the economy in which the writer's strike is taking place in the long run. Obviously, America, because Writers Guild of America. Now, again, international markets, they're good, depending on, the unions in certain countries. But we're talking about, Hollywood, which produces, a majority of the English mainstream content that we consume. I would like to talk about one advantage for the WGA strike, though. And I am not just playing the devil's advocate. I am going to be the devil himself when it comes to this benefit. The WGA strike pinpoints a very important issue that is negatively affecting the film industry. Writers deserve to focus on their craft without having to worry about whether or not they're going to put food on the table, And with a lethal weapon, such as a strike, it's going to communicate to studio executives, just like the US communicated to Japan with their, atomic bomb. Hey, you need to pay us fair wages, or we walk. Now, I still don't think that striking is the solution, just as Hiroshima isn't the solution for, the US in World War II. Going on a strike, is equivalent to dropping an atomic bomb and then expecting there to be no lingering repercussions. And coming from a global pandemic, the Writers Guild of America strikes should not have even been permitted to happen. Also, a filmmaker's livelihood is to entertain us, right? So, the writer's strike is going to have so many repercussions that filmmakers are going to lose their business. So, well done, WGA. Well done. And studio executives, you too, well done, the both of you, for reaching a fair deal. Man, it's hard to maintain sarcasm for that long, especially for something as ridiculous as what we're reading about with the WGA. And, on one hand, you have stubborn, unclassy, idiot studio executives who will run over a dog to not provide writers livable compensation for 3% of profit. On the other hand, union workers throw a list of demands around, and it makes me want to say to them, just take it easy. You need to talk about whatever compromise you're going to get like a champ. Furthermore, like many things in our reality, this is not a black and white issue that the mainstream media is making it out to be. The studio executives are obviously in the wrong. Okay, fine. But don't you think that this new regulation we're trying to do with AI, like artificial intelligence, should be debated at least? Because what if they actually use AI for 95% of the writing process, but writers should still get all the credit. I don't know. This is just a sour inconvenience with bad consequences all around. So anyway, the WGA strikes, at the time of this recording, are still ongoing. In a sick and twisted way, actually. I want the WGA strikes to still go on, just so this podcast segment does not become obsolete. Make it real easy for me to edit, and re-record if need be. In all seriousness, this is nothing short of an apocalyptic nightmare for Hollywood. I would be very intrigued to know what you think about it, though. So, furthermore, whatever your thoughts are on the WGA striking back, let me know in the comment section below or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. Here is the actor who is rumored to be playing Superman. A few names, actually. A few names. The first one being, drumroll please, Makram Mark, the host of the Cinema Courtroom. Yep, I am referring to myself. By the way, to all you good-looking single ladies tuning into this podcast, I hear they're still looking to cast my co-star Lois Lane, so, if anyone wants to be my Lois Lane, speak now or forever hold your peace. I am just kidding. Obviously, I am in no shape to play Superman, and chances are neither are you, because, Hollywood standards and all that, but Henry Cavill was, the perfect shape to play Superman, but now he is gone. Boo-hee-hoo. Anyway, let me be serious here. The first contender for the Superman role is apparently David Corenswet. Now, by no means does it mean that he is actually going to be casted, but it's difficult for me to determine whether or not David Corenswet is going to consolidate the role of Superman, because while he does, from the projects that I've seen him star in, he does possess the charisma when it comes to how he carries himself in press conferences and interviews. How recognizable is he to the audience? Also, we still don't know how James Gunn is going to adapt the Superman role. So, if David Corenswet hasn't been casted yet, would James Gunn be inclined to bring him on for the role? Now, maybe he is already casted, and they're playing the long game before they announce who's going to be casted to the press. But maybe David Corenswet might, I don't know. There's a 49% chance. That's all I'm going to say. Let's shift gears and explore another name that has been circulating on the web. Jacob Elordi, known for his role in the television series Euphoria. Okay, so teenage drama shows, they don't rock my boat, and they may not be everyone's cup of tea. Certainly not mine. However, I do think that it's still important to acknowledge the success of Euphoria and just how effective it is as a story in conveying its thematic depth. That said, reports suggest, although Jacob Elordi is rumored to be playing Superman, David Corenswet actually has a higher chance to play Superman, because it turns out that Jacob will not be donning the cape as Superman. Multiple reports confirm this. So, that's all I'm going to say on this matter. So there's that. The next character to be casted for Superman Legacy is Lois Lane. I just want to say that if you are going to cast Lois Lane, you need to neglect two outlandish things. A. Throw whatever stupid ethnic diversity ideas that you have out of the window. You are casting Lois Lane, not Anika, Lois Lane, who is a white female reporter for the Daily Planet. So no, don't make Lois Lane trans, please. I don't want Stephen Lanes, I want Lois Lanes, okay? And she's a white female reporter for the Daily Planet and is in love with Superman, Kal-El / Clark Kent, however you may call him. Not Ava Hotchick. B. Lois Lane has to be presentable like most reporters. Do you catch my drift? Basically, she has to look like Amy Adams. When she portrayed Lois Lane in DC Extended Universe. So, that out of the way, I think having a actress like Emma Mackey, who's rumored to play Lois Lane in Superman Legacy, would not be something I would object to. Although she hails from a British background, and, Emma Mackey has showcased her talent in projects such as Sex Education on Netflix, we have seen instances of actors adopting different accents and backgrounds to portray beloved characters. Tom Holland, a British actor, flawlessly embraced the role of the iconic web-slinger Spider-Man, while Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace, an African-American performer, eloquently portrayed Black Panther with a distinct accent. Thus, Emma Mackey, who is also in contention for the role of Lois Lane alongside David Corenswet for Superman, could potentially embody the character, bringing both her acting abilities and a fitting appearance for Lois Lane, a character in her mid-20s, which, is the comic description for Lois Lane. And that's how she's been portrayed most of the time anyway on film. And it is worth mentioning that Emma Mackey is undeniably stunning. So, remember how I said for point B that Lois Lane has to be presentable like most reporters that we see on the media? Well, I think Emma Mackey could play that role impeccably. All of that being said and done, I now invite listeners of the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast to hop on the podium and give me their insights and theories on who or who isn't going to get casted for Superman Legacy in the comment section below or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom.
Then no problem. We fix.
If you can get a new part, he says he can fix it.
No, Grogu. Not a pet.
No, a squeezy. Not squeeze, no squeeze. Bad baby. Oh, it's bad.
Sorry about that. He's young.
Bad baby.
No, Grogu.
If it weren't for the Cinema Courtroom Show, I would be talking the hell out of the Mandalorian television series set in the Star Wars universe. Because I love The Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2. Season 3? Well, I liked it, but not as much as compared to the previous seasons of the hit show. During the Star Wars celebration, Lucasfilm and Disney stepped on stage and announced that there is going to be a Mandalorian crossover event movie. Although the exact title may not be Mandalorian, the movie, this cinematic extravaganza will unite the iconic characters from the Disney Plus shows, which hopefully a majority of the fan base know well and love. Just imagine witnessing the likes of Boba Fett, Ahsoka Tano, Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, and countless others sharing the silver screen. Oh, and of course, did you like that? And Grogu. Yeah. So, obviously, I am looking forward to that immensely. But I'm also a bit skeptical. And I think Grogu, who's sitting right next to me, might concur with what I'm about to say. No, he isn't. No. Anyways, whether or not the Mandalorian crossover picture is worth a shot is dependent on one crucial variable. Will it be able to hold the ball and replicate the success that other crossover movies such as The Avengers or Avengers Assembled have been able to achieve, or will it be a Joss Whedon Justice League situation? I, for one, want to behold the Mandalorian crossover movie and see it become a raging success and earn $1 billion in the box office, get good reviews, etc., etc. I would also like to see it revive the Star Wars theatrical experience. Build that same opening night record that they managed to do with Star Wars The Force Awakens, and achieve that again with The Mandalorian. Only that this time it might become better than one of those sequel movies, which I will not name or dignify here in the Cinema Courtroom show. Like, this is a property that so many fans also cherish. There's a lot of incentive. Just kidding, guys. Just because many fans love a property doesn't mean Disney ain't gonna fuck it up. But, I would like to say that Disney and Lucasfilm have an incentive to just make it the best Mandalorian crossover event that they possibly can. And make it just as good, if not better, than Season 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. And if they can, sprinkle in some Andor as well. Which I contend, Andor, to be the best Star Wars television series. But, The Mandalorian, I think, fits the theatrical medium more than Andor anyway. Besides, we just got Rogue One. Anyways, yeah, I'm just rambling. Having concluded my impassioned sermon, I am eagerly anticipating your thoughts on this extraordinary concept. What is your stance on the notion of a Mandalorian crossover movie? It is worth noting that this cinematic extravaganza wouldn't have been feasible without the resounding success of the television show. Are you feeling nervous, excited, or perhaps a mix of both? Whatever your sentiments may be towards this upcoming cinematic spectacle, I invite you to share your valuable insights in the comment section below or reach out to us via our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom.
When Sire moves us to the new world, we're gonna need names. I mean, 89Q12, it's not really a name. So, I would like my name to be Lila.
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 That's a pretty name, Lila.
Thank you.
I think my name shall be Teefs. Because although we all do have them, mine are definitely the most prominent.
Teefs.
Teefs.
Lila.
Teefs.
Me be called Floor because me is lying on floor.
You're lying on a floor, so your name is Floor?
Yes.
Floor.
What about you, friend?
Someday, I'm gonna make great machines that fly. And me and my friends are gonna go flying together into the forever and beautiful sky. Lila and Teefs and Floor and me. Rocket.
As we begin to discuss James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I know I'm a bit, late to the party, but I've actually watched the movie on opening night, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts. However, I am going to have to warn you that there are going to be spoilers right off the bat. Now, traditionally, I would just dedicate a whole podcast to a spoiler-free discussion, and then, split it in half and have it be a spoiler discussion afterwards. But we're not going to do it in this episode because, I'm trying to be economical with my time here, and I also feel like this movie is better to be discussed in its spoilery attributes as opposed to just censoring my thoughts just so I don't spoil a thing or two. No. I'm going to go all in with the spoilers. So, if you have not gotten the chance to avail this movie in your local cinemas near you, or whenever it comes out on digital platforms and home media, I would recommend that you put this podcast on hold, or just skip this segment altogether and then perhaps come back to it once you have got the chance to avail the picture. Because I need to have a spoiler discussion to demonstrate a key point of what I'm actually trying to get at, which is how the Guardians 3 almost restored my faith in the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise. First off, I haven't been thrilled with the state of the cinematic universe lately with Marvel. And here is why I believe the MCU ignored the fundamental elements of what made Phases 1 to 3 a hit to begin with. There were actually filmmakers in Phases 1 to 3 who didn't lack vision, or vision, pun intended, with people like Jon Favreau with the first Iron Man installment, which I contend is one of the... It's not like my top 10 movies of all time, or not even top 20, but it's in like my top 30. Yeah, it was good. The Iron Man 1, great. Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 3, I really enjoyed. And then we have the Captain America trilogy, which I also enjoyed. And yeah, we have the Guardians trilogy now, which I'm gonna discuss the third one in just a moment. But the point I'm trying to make is that Phases 4 and then Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania didn't really have those filmmakers who added their creative touches and contributed to the MCU's magic. It lacked that. And it kind of annoys me that they can't just, employ... Well, now with the writer's strike, that's going to be a bit hard, but I don't get why it was very difficult for them to just employ caliber writers. Because going off from Avengers Endgame, you want to keep the momentum going. Because you're essentially telling people, we have more after Endgame. You should still stick around. Well, why should we stick around? And so far, the MCU and Disney hasn't given us a good reason. Until maybe, just maybe, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So anyway, Phases 4 and the beginning of Phase 5 with Ant-Man and the Wasp's Quantumania ignored what made Phases 1 to 3 a hit. Which is honestly just infuriating, and although I have not been thrilled with the MCU as of late, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 distributed in theaters on May 4th. I attended the opening premiere for the movie, as I've already mentioned, and let me just say, okay, it is a excellent MCU movie. It doesn't set the precedent for cinema or anything like that. And sure, there are a couple flaws here and there, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is pretty exceptional. Having the team break up in the end was much more effective than having, one of them die and then boo-hoo, like Tony Stark died in the Endgame, and it becomes this whole cliche where characters start getting killed off in the finale. But actually, they kept him alive, which they didn't have to do, actually. They may as well have killed off Peter Quill, but, James Gunn obviously wanted to keep him alive to hammer in one of the messages that this movie was trying to convey, which is, don't jump from lily pad to lily pad, you need to learn how to swim. And Peter Quill he's gone through the summer phase with the Guardians and the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2. And now he's metaphorically going back to school. He needs to go to Earth and kind of reconnect with his grandfather, who we saw in the beginning of the first Guardians film. But then he just ran away and he got abducted. But then the interesting thing is, he had every chance, especially in Avengers Endgame, where he went for Tony's funeral, to pay his grandfather a visit. But he didn't, because it's like he didn't want to. He felt like his family was up there in the cosmos, which is the Guardians. You get what I mean? So it wasn't until the end of the movie that we get to witness this well-needed closure for Star-Lord, Peter Quill. Also, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was packed with some acceptable, not exceptional, but acceptable action and, computer-generated imagery. It also had some dark and mature scenes, which I greatly appreciate, like when Lylla triggered the kill switch and then the young Rocket started to break down. And the Grand Evolutionary just mocking him, like, and the asshole that he is. No, not Grand Evolutionary, the High Evolutionary, yes. And, yeah, but the cons of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it could have been, darker and grittier. Like, I wish they actually had the balls to show us a close-up scene of what traumatized Rocket from the, recording footage. And I wanted to see kind of, not R-rated, but like, maybe they could have upped the ampage of how evil the High Evolutionary really is. By the way, guys, if I slip up and mention Grand Evolutionary instead of High Evolutionary, it's only because I'm kind of bad at remembering his full villain title. So anyway, yeah, I get it. Nebula said that the High Evolutionary, not Grand, High, is worse than Thanos, but, like, show us, without having to be constrained by the PG-13 rating, how evil that the High Evolutionary really is. Because animal abuse in real life is much more graphic than we saw in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I think you could have showed us a bit of that while keeping it PG-13. I don't know, like, sacrifice Peter Quill's F-bomb and compromise for a more graphic scene of Rocket. Like, I get that probably makes me sound sadistic, but, that's just how I feel. Also, another con of this movie is that Adam Warlock just felt like a character who was just there to boost the plot and nothing more. I mean, I like the imagery with Adam and the quote-unquote son of God, since Peter Quill is the son of a Celestial, and then, just him saving Peter Quill. But other than that, it was like a nothing more, nothing less kind of situation with his villain to hero arc. You know what I mean? Other than that, I had a really fun time watching this movie, and it ties in the whole trilogy arc of the Guardians nicely. So, I mean, if you're looking for a fun time, go watch this movie. If you lost faith in the MCU post Phase 4 and want to have it restored again, also watch this movie. Now, what I'm not looking forward to is the Marvels. The first teaser trailer for this upcoming MCU flick made me cringe. Not in a good and impactful storytelling kind of way, like I felt with Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where I literally cringed at how horrifying, the abuse that Rocket Raccoon had to suffer. But no, I actually cringed at the Marvels because I was annoyed at how the dialogue was written just from watching the trailer. I'm not looking forward to it, to say the least. Which leaves me to conclude that yes, the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 almost restored my faith in the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise, but not entirely, because James Gunn is departing from the Marvel domain and investing more of his time on his DC Extended Universe, which I am really looking forward to. And I talked in length about who's getting casted for Superman Legacy, which is a DC movie that he's actually directing, which, honestly, I couldn't have been more happier. Okay, that's all I have to say regarding the Guardians of the Galaxy. I liked it, but now we should hold our breath for the rest of Marvel Phase 5. Because, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, it's now evened out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I hope the Marvels actually becomes that tiebreaker where actually Phase 5 becomes, more prominent in it having a good set of movies. Okay, enough of me talking. What do you think about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed by James Gunn? Did you like it? Not like it? If you would ever feel so inclined, jot down your thoughts of this third installment of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comment section below, or our Twitter handle @CinemaCourtroom. Today, I want to dive into an interesting discussion about indie filmmaking versus mainstream filmmaking. In this segment of the Cinema Courtroom show, we will be exploring the pros and cons of each approach, but with a twist. This is all to culminate to a case for independent filmmaking, because that's the kind of filmmaking that I stand for in the cinema industry, ladies and gentlemen. But there are both sides to the argument to be discussed here, or, worth discussing, because some just aren't, that I am going to cover, and then I'll conclude, spoiler alert, with why independent filmmaking has to succeed. So yeah, that's what I'm going to try and accomplish in the next few minutes of this podcast. The thing I admire the most about independent filmmaking is that it offers a huge level of creativity and artistic freedom that is limited by mainstream filmmaking studios, such as Disney or Warner Brothers. Also, the unlimited creative power and potential of becoming an indie filmmaker is what generates the most nuanced and caliber screenplays, since you have unlimited creative power at your disposal, right? And you get to enjoy the freedom of not having a studio, a big, executive level studio that is, interfere with your vision like Warner Brothers did with Zack Snyder and the Justice League. You are your own boss, essentially, which I find to be just rad. But more importantly, again, top tier filmmakers will have the opportunity to exhibit their top tier visions without having to have it greenlit by, again, an elite executive wiping their ass with money in the bathroom somewhere, Another pro for indie pictures is that independent filmmakers have the psychological drive to make the perfect motion pictures. Otherwise, if they make a bad one, they might not ever be allowed to create a movie for anyone ever again. Alright, cool. So let's put the benefits of independent filmmaking on the side for a moment. Let's play devil's advocate for the cons. Limited budget is an obvious drawback for independent filmmaking because independent filmmakers often face financial constraints. Without the backing of major studios or investors, securing funding for production, and trust me guys, like $100,000 if you want to make a decent movie, like either you have to be very economical of it or it's not even enough to create your vision. So if you want to create your full vision in full force, you may not even be able to do that because you have to secure funding. Not only that, but you have to market the movie as well. And not only marketing, but distribution can also be a daunting task. Limited budgets can result in compromises on, again, production values, equipment, and resources, which may affect the overall quality of the film. You could have like a certain level of quality in your head, and then realize that because of the funding, it's going to be less, to put it simply. But I do really think that limited budget of independent filmmaking can be outweighed with the filmmaker having maybe the right amount of charisma and the perfect pitch deck plus a fabulous screenplay to boot. Because if I were a studio executive, I would look at a, caliber screenplay and I would throw my money at it because good stories generate revenue. And the studios that notice this, like A24 with Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is actually an indie film, they're the ones that make the most money and win the most Oscars. So, yeah, but if that counteract, like if you don't have, charisma or the perfect pitch deck or maybe not even the perfect screenplay, well, that's even better because now filmmakers they'd have an incentive to become resourceful and innovative in their approach to filmmaking. And you know what? They're going to get like the wake-up reminder that, listen, you need to create the best screenplay that you can because that's pretty, your creative mind is the only resource you can use to your full advantage. Otherwise, you have to make do with what little you have. And filmmakers would be able to seek creative remedies, if they're a creative thinker, to production setbacks, leading to fresh new filmmaking techniques. For instance, if you guys heard of a filming technique called a oneer, where basically you film it all in one shot. It's very difficult to do, but there's no denying that it saves a lot of time in between takes, because if you do it all in one take and it's perfect, it's easy to edit. So we talked about the pros and cons for independent filmmaking. How about mainstream filmmaking? Well, for one, because I feel immeasurable disappointment to how mainstream filmmaking operates, especially in the cinema industry, which we talk about a lot here in the Cinema Courtroom. I am going to be very biased in how I talk about it, but for the sake of a balanced argument, I mean, mainstream filmmaking, I suppose, has access to a whole treasury of funds, which can lead to excellent computer-generated imagery, like we got to behold in Avatar: The Way of Water recently. Directed by James Cameron, starring Zoe Saldana, yada yada yada. There is no way conceivable to man that an indie film would be capable of creating such stunning visuals. Mainstream filmmaking can also reach a wide audience that is beyond just film festivals and niche communities. Hey guys, I like, it reminds me, like in my Discord server, we have people that are like, hey guys, I have a short film, it cost me like $50 to make, but please hit the like button. Like, mainstream filmmaking doesn't have to worry about that. And yeah, independent artists don't have that same luxury as mainstream filmmaking. Instead, they have to do everything from scratch. But here's something we have to take into strong consideration. We cannot ignore the fact that indie movies have the motivation to craft the best possible screenplay that they can, which comes from having a low budget. The thing is, when it comes to big studios like Disney, they can have the luxury of incorporating filler scenes and stretching the runtime of their movies without much concern. Like, even if a film like Star Wars The Last Jedi doesn't resonate with people, they have separate money vaults to account for any box office losses. But for an indie filmmaker, it's a whole different story. Indie filmmakers don't have access to such abundant resources, which means that everything they do has to count in the end. And let's face it, only an idiot indie filmmaker would piss on the limited resources that they have. And that's why indie filmmakers often find themselves going over their scripts countless times, treating them like full novels before even starting the shooting process, because they can't just have, write a script within 5 months and then just say, okay, we're going to see if it lands or not. No. You're going to spend years and years and years for probably just a few pages of a script for a first draft, because they want it to be perfect. They don't have the budget to accommodate failure, unlike Disney, Warner Brothers, or Netflix. Every decision matters because the success or failure of their film can determine an independent curator's future in the industry. It's like a one-shot opportunity, and if they miss it, it's game over. Becoming an indie filmmaker isn't just about pleasing a large crowd. These filmmakers have a vision that's burning inside them, a vision that they believe is so important that it deserves to be turned into a tangible product. Well, it's tangible when you have it on a physical media. If you're streaming, it's technically not. Whatever. My point still stands here. The indie films we see are often authentic because they are a manifestation of that passionate drive of creating the very best content. It's like savoring a fresh home-cooked meal compared to the fast food experience of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. No disrespect intended to the MCU, of course. So if you're an indie filmmaker, it's not about seeking validation from the masses. I mean, sure, you do need to start doing that if you want to make it big in the industry, but initially it's all about pouring your heart and soul into your screenplay, believing that the world needs to experience your story. It's that unwavering passion that sets indie filmmakers apart and fuels the relentless pursuit of creating something truly remarkable. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the essence of being an indie filmmaker, driven by an unwavering creative force and an unyielding motivation to craft the best motion picture possible. It's this passion that gives indie artists such a significant and influential role in the cinema industry as opposed to mainstream filmmaking. But remember, this is just my quote-unquote Quentin Tarantino perspective. Now I want to hear from all of you. What are your insights, agreements, disagreements, questions, and thoughts on mainstream versus indie films? Share them with me in the comment section below, or reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. The links can be found in the description below. In this segment of the Cinema Courtroom podcast, we're going to delve into the world of cinematic universes and ponder the question: have interconnected franchises lost their way? Once upon a time, we were captivated by the notion of superheroes teaming up on the big screen as if our cherished fan fiction had come to fruition. However, it seems like every motion picture studio is now making an attempt to construct their own interconnected universe or world, resulting in a sense of what I believe to be overcrowding. As time passed, we found ourselves witnessing a plethora of spin-offs, prequels, sequels, and reboots. It's as if we can't escape the never-ending parade of costumes and superpowers. Meanwhile, the DC Extended Universe aimed to emulate Marvel's success, but encountered some stumbling blocks along the way. Their eagerness to catch up, often led to missteps, creating a convoluted web of timelines and alternate universe. It's like navigating a multiverse with a faulty compass. But I don't think interconnected franchises have lost their way fully, because amidst this saturation of the DCEU or the MCU, there are still shining examples of interconnected franchises executed with brilliance. Let's take a moment to appreciate a critically successful cinematic universe, which won the most Oscars in history, the Lord of the Rings franchise. Well, it's the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I like to consider it a franchise because of the 3 other Hobbit movies. My point is that was a successful cinematic universe. Now, say what you want about The Hobbit being a CGI bore fest or, contradicting Tolkien canon for whatever reason you might think, or, Legolas might have been involved too much, or there should have only been 2 movies, which I actually found to be pretty a stupid assertion to make, because, okay, are you, with Desolation of Smaug, building up the first encounter with Smaug and then unleashing him on Lake Town, causing havoc, then Bard kills him, but then there's this third act of The Hobbit where it's the Battle of the 5 Armies. Are you gonna just cover that within a span of 2 movies? Obviously not. It's kind of like Dune. Were they gonna do a one movie, not split into parts for the whole Dune novel? No. They have to split it up so they can capture each and every element of what make the book so special. Anyway, yeah, so the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings franchises were very successful, and it shows that you don't need to keep creating cash grab after cash grab. You can end it when you decide to end it. The MCU, Fast and Furious, and DCEU unfortunately does not understand this philosophy. They just want infinite continuance. And it pisses me off quite a bit because now they're just diluting the content until they build up to some big ticket seller event. But I think what makes The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings franchise particularly remarkable is their ability to create a fully realized and immersive fantasy world that spans across multiple films. From The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, chronologically wise, to The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Each installment adds layers of depth and complexity to the overall narrative, seamlessly interconnecting characters and events, like Bilbo Baggins to Frodo Baggins a few hundred years later. It's all one adventure loop because now, because Bilbo's writing his book, it's now written after Lord of the Rings, and you can read it from beginning to end, and then read it again and again and again. It's a timeless story that doesn't rely on 20 movies. Moreover, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit films showcase a remarkable attention to detail and a commitment to not only staying true to J.R. Tolkien's beloved source material, but also the interconnectedness of the franchise enhances the viewing experience, allowing audiences to fully immerse themselves in the rich lore and mythology. In conclusion, interconnected franchises have provided us with moments of cinematic wonder indeed. However, as studios continue to churn out spin-offs and reboots, it's crucial to reflect on what made these franchises special in the first place. Perhaps it's time to take a step back, take a breath, and remember that quality and coherence should never, ever be sacrificed purely for the sake of expanding a universe to make money. Anyway, I've ranted about this long enough. What do you think? Do you think interconnected franchises have lost their way? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, or perhaps you can reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. It is now time to converse about some of the most iconic directors of our time in the cinema industry. First up, Quentin Tarantino. Foot fetish aside, this guy is like the master of unconventional storytelling, something I wish gets pushed more in our mainstream programming. He is famous for his unique blend of violence, pop culture reference, snappy dialogues that keep us on the edge of our seats. You know, you're watching a Tarantino film when a seemingly ordinary conversation just turns into a bloodbath, and you're like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Go look for my review on Inglourious Basterds, by the way. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about here on this show whenever I say that Quentin Tarantino is an excellent, one-of-a-kind director. Next, we have my favorite filmmaker of all time, who in my opinion is even more brilliant, yes, even than Quentin Tarantino, is Christopher Nolan. And that's because he directed Interstellar, which I consider to be the best science fiction movie of all time. That movie is packed with stunning visuals, research, and creative power, and such as the research on black holes and physics has been poured heavily into that movie. And that is why I really enjoy Christopher Nolan's movies. Like, okay, fine. And this is actually a testament to how much intellectual economy Christopher Nolan incorporates into his screenplays. But, okay, I'll admit that I have had to watch Tenet 2 to 3 times-ish. But I would honestly rather have intellectual attributes contained in the movies that I watch than the sloppy garbage we get in some of the MCU movies. So, Christopher Nolan gets a win in regard to creating intellectual movies. So, to the director who takes us on a journey where we question our sanity and the laws of physics, yay, Christopher Nolan. Okay, imagine if I forgot to include Steven Spielberg in my list of iconic film directors, because, well, I mean, has anyone watched Jurassic Park? No? Okay, maybe dinosaurs ain't your thing. Oh, well, Schindler's List, which contains a beautiful soundtrack composed by John Williams. In fact, I can even tell you which piece of the soundtrack for Schindler's List is my favorite to listen to, maybe of all time. Second to Lord of the Rings, and that's the title track, Making the List. Listen to it on wherever you listen to your music and podcasts, or where you're listening to this podcast, because it is pretty darn special. So, have you watched any of Steven Spielberg's movies? Schindler's List? No? Then what the fuck are you doing? pretending to be interested in the art of the filmmaking genre. Go watch at least one Steven Spielberg picture and try telling me that he cannot direct a wide range of motion pictures with various genres and high caliber storytelling. Now, the reason why I said that Christopher Nolan is my favorite director is because he creates movies that align with my tastes more. And it's something that requires thinking. And I like movies that do that because it makes movies more engaging when you have to continue to think about it. And I get it. The popcorn flicks exist for a reason. Mediocre entertainment exists. And if you just want to distract your mind like I did with watching Super Mario Brothers the other day, by all means. But I also want thought and expression in the screenplays being executed on the silver screen, if you get what I mean. Because, okay, if we had more time, I would have mentioned other film directors like Martin Scorsese, the master of gritty dramas, Wes Anderson, and Yorgos Lanthimos. Anyway, I would be interested to know your thoughts about your iconic directors list in the comment section below. Or you can reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. Soundtracks have become an integral element of our lives, enriching our experiences in motion pictures, television shows, video games, and even commercials. But have we truly acknowledged soundtracks as a distinct genre of music? I don't think so. So why not explore why soundtracks deserve more recognition and why it should be recognized as a genre in itself. Soundtracks possess unique characteristics and elements that set them apart from other genres, you see. They are carefully crafted compositions designed to complement visual storytelling, evoke emotions, and enhance the overall narrative of, cinema. One key aspect of noticing soundtracks as a genre lies in their ability to convey mood and atmosphere. These compositions are tailored to match the tone of the scenes they accompany, intensifying emotions and immersing the audience in the story. Now, another defining characteristic of soundtracks is also their timeless quality, which you can't just say is mixed because it's so timeless that it's its own isolated entity. Iconic themes like John Williams' Star Wars score, or Hans Zimmer's Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, or Dune, have transcended their original films and have become synonymous with the emotions and memories associated with them. Soundtracks encompass a diverse range of musical styles, from orchestral arrangements to electronic soundscapes and everything in between. This versatility enables composers to, fuck about, push boundaries, and create unique sonic landscapes that suit the specific narrative and setting of each project. So, how can we give soundtracks the recognition they deserve as a distinct genre? Firstly, it starts with acknowledging the immense talent and the skill of the composers who crafted those compositions. Their comprehension of storytelling and ability to translate emotions into melodies is remarkable. Secondly, we can actively seek out soundtracks and listen to them independently from their original context. By doing so, we open ourselves up to a world of incredible music that can be enjoyed on its own merits. Lastly, we should at least whenever we can, and it's something I need to start doing as well, support events and initiatives that celebrate soundtracks as a genre. Film festivals, gaming conventions, and concerts featuring live performances of iconic soundtracks. Comic-Con, they're all great opportunities to experience these compositions in a fresh light. By appreciating the artistry and impact of soundtracks, we contribute to the recognition and appreciation of this significant genre of music. That's all the time we have for today's segment on recognizing soundtracks as a genre of music. Join us next time for more captivating discussions on the Cinema Courtroom Show. Alright, now ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of the Cinema Courtroom Show, where we talked about industry news. I had a lot of fun doing this podcast, so make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this new installment of the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast. I hope to see you guys again in the next episode where we're going to talk about another movie. Thank you once again for listening till the end on Anchor, Amazon, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's all well and appreciated. I am your galactic judge, Makram, and I hope you have a spectacular day.
Hello there.
Court is now dismissed.